Hello and welcome to PCB Chat. I'm your host, Mike Buetow. Today's podcast is brought to you by Sierra Circuits, your one-stop shop for PCB design, fabrication, and assembly, right in the middle of the Silicon Valley. Come visit their facilities in Sunnyvale and get on board at protoexpress.com. My guest today is Greg Papandrew. Greg has more than 25 years' experience selling PCBs directly for various fabricators and as a founder of a leading distributor. He is co-founder of Better Board Buying and will be speaking at PCB West in September. Greg, welcome to PCB Chat.
Thank you, Mike. Glad to be here this morning.
Let's start by giving listeners a little bit more color on your background in PCBs. You've been selling boards in one form or another for more than 2 decades. Yes,
actually, I started this industry just by answering an ad in the paper. I found out when I was just trying to get into the industry, I used to sell avionics. And when I left that job, I wanted to still stay in the electronic industry. But anything in electronics had to do with either copier sales or selling vacuums. Yeah, seriously.
Well, there's boards in both of those.
Yes, there are boards both of those. And then I saw this ad for a local PCB house here in St. Pete, a manufacturer, and it said printed circuit board sales. So I put my name in for an interview, and the day before, I bought a book called Electronics, and it had 2 pages. It was called Understand Electronics, just 2 pages about circuit boards. I read up on it and went in there, and I got the job. And I think one of the reasons I got the job was I went in there very honestly saying, I know what a circuit board is. I've been in sales for a long time, and they like my honesty, and I think they got me cheap. And I was grateful because he really introduced me to an industry that has done me and my family very well. So that's how it all started. And then as I just continued in the industry and grew, I guess taking after my dad, who always had a business going, I said, I could do this better myself, or I can do this better, or I can serve my customer better. And that's how it eventually matured into what I'm doing today.
So that barrier to buying and selling boards wasn't very high at the time?
No, at the time it wasn't. Actually, how it started was, quite honestly, it just started as a frustration because from a sales standpoint, when I was in a manufacturing facility, and then I saw how another person's, or what we would call as brokers today, how they were able to service their customers. Like, well, I don't have to actually manufacture the board in order to service my customer. And so that's how the idea got born about me providing and starting one of the larger brokers. And even with that, that's how it took off, where I was saying, okay, how can I do this better? Because I saw their model and I wanted to improve upon it. At the time, brokers were just, they're bringing in boards, they're inspecting them themselves, make sure everything was good, and then shipping them on, and especially with offshore. And as they're bringing them from offshore, I always felt once the boards landed, it was too late to tell your customer, we have a problem. So that's what came up with the idea is, okay, we need to have the contact over there, not only have the contact over there, and this is Taiwan at the time, China was just starting to really get mature and building boards. Then have the company over there, have people over there who inspected the boards there at the factory and understand what is needed. So before the boards actually left Taiwan or the factory, the boards were good. And so that's how kind of morphed into it. Just, the old saying, the mother of necessity is invention. And that's when I just saw is, why can't we do this, this, and this? And it comes down to business management. It comes down to ownership. It comes down to the spirit, because even after I sold the brokerage and I started consulting and work for other companies, it's still the same mentality. And forgive me if I'm going off base here, but that's really what started the whole thing and the process of how I want to take care of the customer. The old saying in sales is you say yes to the customer and then you figure out how to do it. It just seems a lot of businesses here today, circuit board, and just name business in general, it's like they'll say no, or they won't think out of the box on how to solve a customer's problem. Because when a customer gives you a problem to solve, you got a sale. And it doesn't take much to figure things out.
So when it comes to board procurement, what are some trends that you've seen over the past 20 years?
Over the last 20 years, more acceptance of getting boards from Taiwan and China, more acceptance of getting boards outside of this country. That's within the last 20 years. In the last 10 years or so, there was more acceptance of using less of a domestic manufacturers and going more for the offshore. Partly is price for that, and the other part of it is because, quite frankly, domestic manufacturers could not keep up with not only the consistent as much as in quality, but also in delivery. And in the last 5 years, it has become where customers now, the Made in America is not as what it once was. When I first started the brokerage, 15 years ago, almost 20 years ago, I had to really convince customers, hey, look, it's okay to go offshore for your boards. It's okay to use a broker. It's okay that I don't manufacture, but I'll get you your boards, the price you need, and ensure the quality. Now it's come full circle where it's like, it doesn't really matter where you get the boards as long as you're getting the price you need. And so there's not that barrier anymore that there used to be.
And you were able to work with a shop to become registered to ITAR, even though they were an offshore
shop.
Yeah,
I did that. That's a funny story there. I wanted to see ways that we can improve upon what we're doing. And I'm not talking stuff that goes into missiles or maybe weapons, but I'm talking there's a lot of stuff that's ITAR that really doesn't need to be ITAR, and rightfully so. I mean, the thing that turns the light switch on inside a tank, does that circuit board need to be, is that a military secret? Or something that's a wearable? Is that really a military secret? No. Can they not build these offshore? Can we build them in a country that is okay? And Taiwan's one of them. But you get the Taiwan facility registered, the management. You can apply for export licenses of the prints and all that. And there are people who are doing it. What I have a problem with it, the businessman in me says, yes, get wherever you need to get at the best price possible, the quality desired, and in the time frame you need it. The Eagle Scout in me says there's certain things that just don't need to go offshore, and there is a lot of business. I remember someone saying, I think it was you, is the circuit board, the cost of the circuit board really driving up the F-35 price? No, it's not. It's just one in many of the different costs that are there. And there is a lot of stuff which I don't necessarily agree with on the ITAR, whereas customers are sending off prints and they don't know what they're sending off. And when I go to an ITAR facility here in the United States, I got to show them my ID, and I got to say I'm a U.S. citizen. And if I'm a non-U.S. citizen, I'm actually escorted. And here, when you go overseas, I think the fallacy is when you send that same very print that I have to have in an ITAR control facility, and I go overseas to Taiwan, what will happen is you don't know who the employees are. They don't have the security. They don't have the doors that are locked or the passes that are nowhere. So there's a security issue there. I believe right now, if it's truly, circuit boards need to be classified correctly, there must be a judgment call. Is this really a national secret? Is this something we don't want to send offshore? And if that's the case, it does not go offshore, period, regardless if it's ITAR or not. In other words, if it's ITAR, it stays here. Anything else goes offshore. That's to me that should be the rule.
Greg, have you noticed any differences in the ways that prospective customers go about auditing potential suppliers?
Yeah, in comparison to 10, 20 years ago, the auditing is not there like it used to be. Larger OEMs will still audit, but contract manufacturers, not so much. And now that I'm seeing this come across is that a lot of companies don't either have the manpower or the time. I think whether you could call it not have the time, the resources, the wherewithal, the laziness, or is it now boards, unfortunately, are more considered a commodity, and they don't look to it anymore as, oh, we need to inspect that. And unfortunately, I'm seeing today a lot of customers, contract manufacturers, even some engineers don't realize what goes into the manufacture of a circuit board. When I'll do a factory tour once or twice a year, whether it be domestically or offshore, people still today are very much amazed at all the processes that are involved in making a circuit board. They don't realize all the things that could happen and what it takes. Yes, you can make a circuit board in a day. Sure. Now, there's a lot of board houses that do that. They make their money on that. But to make something consistently day in, day out from manufacturer and be consistent in quality and timely delivery, that's a different story. You can make any one board stand on edge, but you can't make thousands of them stand on edge.
So when we talk about thousands of boards, should we not refer to them as commodity? I mean, that's always a bit of a debate, correct? That the OEMs and the EMS guys look at the boards as being essentially interchangeable, and the fabricators are always pushing the narrative that these are built to print. It's not a commodity, it's a custom item, and the price should reflect that.
The question's good. I have the unique advantage, not a lot of people, coming from being a broker, being called a B word for years. I have both bought and sold many circuit boards. So I have been both buyer and salesman. It puts me in a unique position because I can relate to the commodity because, when I was a broker, people looked at commodity. Hey, is that what you want to think about, Mr. Customer? That's it. And how I distinguish my price from somebody else's price who might have been lower than me on this commodity is that I sold my service. That's what made me different was my service. But at the same time, I do know that I can get boards from many different sources, whether domestic or offshore, for different pricing, for under different brand names, and at all different pricing. So go to Taiwan, China, I get a range of pricing. Go to U.S., get a range of pricing. Pricing doesn't necessarily dictate the quality that's going to be received, nor does it necessarily mean that it's bad. So it is a custom-made item. A circuit board should not be treated as a commodity. I think there's a lot of things I've actually denied working with board houses because they didn't communicate with me. Their product was great. Their quality was there. The price was there. But when they didn't deliver or they didn't give me communication saying this is what's going on or communicate with me or my people appropriately, I didn't want to deal with them. So I think to just say it's a pure commodity, I think there's a lot of things that go into when you're choosing to work with a certain board house.
So we've talked about the perspective of the seller, Greg. Why don't you tell us about your new venture, Better Board Buying? One central thesis, as you note on your website, is that most PCB buyers get no formal training. That's frankly astonishing, given that, according to Dr. Hayao Nakahara, the PCB market is almost a $75 billion a year industry.
Well, that is true. It is amazing. And I think this falls in with the commodity, as you asked me earlier. They treat it as a commodity, so they just look at pricing. But what really happened, what made me think about this in the last 2 years, as I was working for several domestic, both a domestic manufacturer and a domestic broker, when I was out in the field talking to the customers, I realized the buyers of today, compared to the buyers I knew 20 years ago when I started in the industry, are different. A couple of things. One, we had commodity buying back then. Second, technology. The technology was in print. We had films. We had silvers. A D-size print was the fab drawing. And a D-size print, most people don't know what they are today, was as big as a tablecloth, and you had one for every layer of artwork, just about. So when a buyer gave you a set of files to quote, you usually had to either wait in the mail or go run and pick them up. And when you picked them up, they gave them to you, and you looked at them. Oh, okay, this is a 2-layer board. It's 3 by 4 inches. You actually discussed the board that you're going to quote. Okay, what kind of array do you want this in? Things like that. And there was more of that relationship where you were talking with the buyer about the construction of a circuit board and how it was going to be used. Well, today that's lost. Okay, one, we don't have commodity buying anymore. Technology is everything. And I went from, just jokingly, I went from print to a 3.5 to 5-inch floppy. Okay. Now we thought that was a big thing. And then we had fax machines involved with this. And now we're to the point where, we had thumb drives and we had this. Now it's like there's nothing. There's nothing to carry and put in your hand anymore. It's all email, electronically sent. And no one sees what's actually there. The buyer says, or now it's not buyers so much, it's program managers. Okay. And he or she is so busy about working at or anything else. They don't go into details. Just give me the price. Well, okay, that promotes the commodity think of a circuit board, but at the same time, because of this, buyers don't realize how large or small the board is. They don't realize the complexity or what they can do, that some of the buyers out there, a lot of them, don't know that they could buy smarter. In other words, they're buying things and realize, I could have done this, I could have done that. Because they treat it as a commodity in that relationship, and it's gone with the sales rep. Even the sales rep doesn't even know anymore about a board like they used to. So what's happening is now people are missing out. And what I've been seeing is because they've been missing out, they don't know what they're buying. A lot of customers are buying the board wrong. And coming from the buying aspect, because I bought and sold circuit boards, I'm realizing people could be buying a lot smarter. And that's how the idea of better board buying came about. Was in most companies, whether OEM or EMS, there's ISO training. And if there's ISO training, they train the floor, people on the floor, how to solder, how to package, how to unpackage, how to store, how to inspect, how to do everything else. But they don't teach these OEMs or EMS customers where the circuit board is the foundation of their product that represents 8 to 10% or more of the actual bill materials. They don't train people on what to look for or how to buy boards smartly. And that's what came up with the idea of the certification program or training program at a minimum, how to buy boards. And that's where I'm making a push. I'm doing a lot of LinkedIn, imparting my knowledge of saying, hey, look, this is what you need to do. And this is how you can buy smarter. And and it's not so much technology. It's more, you let the engineer take care of technology in your company. Okay. And because the buyer is not necessarily the engineer, the buyer is the person. Look, you tell me what you need, I'll get it for you. But just tell me what you need, I got to understand it. And at the same time, the buyer's got to have certain training to understand what are cost drivers. And the buyer's got to go back to the engineer with some sense, say, look, I understand you want to do this, but is there a true reason why you want to do this? Because a lot of buyers and engineers are buying Porsches when a Ford will get you there. In other words, technology. I don't need to have this fine tight or this kind of size array or this kind of stuff that adds cost to it. So that's where I've been seeing a lot of things going where, you could have made this board less expensive. Another thing that I notice big time now when you go out there is buyers today, we have continuous improvement programs, quality job one, we're highly efficient. But no one looks at the board again. Like we have this project, I'll go out on the floor of a OEM or ES company, and I'm looking at boards. I want to know who's building them. I've got a nosy eye. I want to know who's building the board. I want why they're building the board. I want to know how much it costs. But today's buyers, unfortunately, again, is it the economy? Is it lean and mean running? But that continuous improvement. In other words, there's no. Can we get, okay, look, we got this project here last year, and it's going very well. What can we do to improve it? We're buying this board still at this cost. Is there a way we can make this cheaper? Have we leveraged our buying spend with our suppliers? In other words, hey, look, I know we quoted this last year, but since that time, I've bought additional $250,000 with you. Can I get a break? I mean, I'm not talking necessarily redesigning the board. I'm talking about using your buying power to go to that vendor, okay, that has been building you this board and say, look, you've been building for a year. You got the process down pat. It has cost you less to build this board. I'm not asking to give me all the savings. Like, hey, can we split the difference? Can I get another nickel or two out of this board? I mean, we're talking anywhere from 3 to 10 points on an assembly. And board houses need that, I think, continuous improvement in order to get more out of the bottom line without increasing their sales. EMS guys complain about how things are and all that, but they're not looking sometimes internally. I mean, at one time I was on the show floor, even not so much beating up on your vendor, for lack of a better word, for a better price, or asking that, but are you using the right vendors? I went to one place and I saw a line of boards, and I saw the logo on the board, and I'm like, was this a quick turn? No. Have you had this job for long? Oh yeah, we build this every month. Why are you going to this factory? You know they're a quick turn factory. Yes. And I'm like, quick turn means higher price. And they looked at it. Well, Graham, we don't have time to go back to look at that, because these buyers today are not so much buyers, but almost glorified quoters, okay? Because they're just spending so much time. I'm not knocking them, just the amount of time they have. They're just quoting projects, looking at other things. They don't have time to look at that. But there's found money to be made on the shop floor that's been ignored. And that, in a very large nutshell, is how this whole idea started. Was there's money to be made and saved in the buying of circuit boards. You're
speaking at PCB West in September. What can attendees expect to learn?
Yes, I will be talking 3:30 to 5:30 on Tuesday afternoon, the 10th, at PCB West. Looking forward to it. That is a great venue. And to become a better board buyer, I've always told people you need to go to shows, and PCB West is one of them. You learn a lot about the industry. What I'll be talking about is better board buying, and I'll be giving out a free ebook for those who attend, and of a book called PCB Basics for Buyers. It will go into some detail on how a board is made, but it's great for anyone from reception to receiving to learn just the basics of a circuit board. What I will be doing, though, is going into detail about how to pick that right vendor, and also questions to be asking, from tariffs to array design to quality to shipping, to all those different questions that will add, those things that add cost to a board and what to avoid. Again, it's not so much technology, it's just those simple things where someone comes up to you and an engineer gives a buyer a board, and hopefully the buyer takes a little time to look at it and say, which vendor should I go to on this? Okay, could we make this a better, more efficient array? And those questions, things like that, where the buyer should be able to ask so they can get the best competitive price they need from their vendor base.
And who would benefit from attending?
From attending would be engineers. Believe it or not, an engineer would be good to attend, because it's always good in the beginning when an engineer designs a board to think, okay, let's assume this is going to go production. If it's a one-off, this board, no problem for an engineer, because they can care less. It's a test board. But if you're an OEM or an EMS guy that's going to be there and you're designing an array for manufacture, that is a good person to go to. Some things to keep in the back of the mind that when you're designing a circuit board, things to think about. Buyers should go there as well, so they can learn some hints about vendor selection and those questions I was talking about earlier about what to ask your engineer staff, do they really need? Owners of EMS shops or a small OEM would be more than happy to be there as well, because they should be asking these questions of their staff, because, as I said, it's the basis, the platform for your product that you're selling. Everyone should have a very good understanding of that thing that costs 8 to 12% should cost, or what's involved to get it properly.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's PCB Chat. I want to thank our guest, Greg Papandrew of Better Board Buying. Greg, why don't you let folks know how to reach you?
Yes, you could always contact me directly at my email address, greg@boardbuying.com. You may go to the website, www.boardbuying.com. Please click on the link for the newsletter, and you can also put in for a download your free ebook, which is available now.
Great. And listeners who want to learn more can see Greg in action at PCB West on September 10th. PCB West is the leading trade show for the printed circuit design and manufacturing industry, and it's coming September 9th to the 12th to the Santa Clara Convention Center. Visit PCBWest.com for details. This has been Mike Buetow for PCB Chat. Have a nice day.